In this video, we discuss how much you should have saved for retirement by ages 55, 60, and 65. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Recently, I released a video called The Average Retirement Savings by Age 55, 60, and 65. And what came out of that video is that savings varies wildly depending on who you are and how you lived your life. It's fair to say that what people actually have saved and what the experts say they should have saved are often two dramatically different numbers. And if you look at any fund company, a mutual fund, an investment fund, they will have a set of published numbers, generally they will anyway, suggesting what you should have as a multiple of your income at various stages of your life set aside for retirement. This video will discuss those numbers and discuss why some are reasonably accurate while others dramatically miss the mark. More importantly, it will discuss how to think about your own financial situation as it relates to those numbers out there. Let's start off with a quick discussion about data that you read in reports. Some data is irrefutable. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Anybody that disagrees with you on this point is someone that you don't want to spend a lot of time arguing facts with. Other data that you read are rules of thumb. These are good heuristics, but they don't apply universally. They apply to most, but not everyone. Regular exercise will help you live longer. Yes, this is generally true, but it doesn't take into account things like an accident, an unforeseen medical condition, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then there's data that I call suspect, where the person or the company presenting this data has an obvious bias, and that bias is to get you to believe that data, generally because they'll make money if you believe what they're saying. The actual data still may support the expected outcome even if the company or the person is profiting from you believing that information, but it does put that data on a different plane than the other data. But if examined critically, the data is often like a stopped clock, where it's right twice a day, and it just happens to be a coincidence that what they're telling you happens to be true using the examples that they give you. The point is that when you receive information about how much to save for retirement, that data comes from a financial advisor or from a fund most of the time, and that financial advisor or fund has assets under management that get paid for the amount of assets they have under management. That doesn't mean that the information is wrong or inaccurate, but go in eyes wide open so that when you see information out there, you don't have a visceral reaction to it because you couldn't possibly hit the numbers that they're presenting to you. And the other point is, even if the data falls into category 2 and the information is generally correct, it may not be correct for you and your particular situation. Perhaps you had some big expenses during your working years that won't repeat themselves during your retirement years. Two that come to mind immediately are weddings for your daughters, if you are the type of family that pays for the wedding, if your daughter is the one who's getting married, and college, of course. If you paid for most or all of your child's college education, particularly if you're paying for out-of-state schools, those numbers can be massive, but you're not going to have those same numbers in retirement. Or it could go the other way. In retirement, you could have a family member who needs your financial support. Medical care for a parent is a big one, but also children that need financial support because they've lost their job, or you knew going into retirement that they had a medical condition that needed to be dealt with long term, and so you knew going into retirement you were going to be paying for that. That's not uncommon. Whatever the situation, understand that the information that you're being presented to, both in this video and out there, is based on averages and assumptions that may not apply to you. Finally, and this goes without saying, but if you're like 80% of the people out there, you had a large portion, maybe even most or all of your investments in an age-based fund. The age-based funds, or the target-based funds, they target a year of retirement, they all were down last year, all the big ones anyway, between 15 and 18% in most cases. That's about 1/6 of the total value of the fund. This means that if you had 6 years salary saved at the beginning of 2022, you only had 5 saved at the end of 2022 if all of your investments were in that fund. By the way, most financial advisors will tell you that short-term volatility, such as the volatility we saw in 2022, is just part of the game, and you should not disregard it, certainly, but don't overreact to it. I generally agree with that, by the way. All right, let's get into the actual numbers by age. But stick around to the end, because after we go through the numbers, I'm going to pull it all together and make sense of it for you, and that'll take me just a minute or two. This data comes from T-Rowe Price, one of the most respected mutual fund companies out there, and it was released in May of 2022, May 31st of 2022 to be exact. This data makes a few assumptions. The first is that you were married and that your spouse also worked. This means that your income would have been higher than if one person worked and one person stayed home, at least in most instances. This means that the targets are higher because everything is based on a percentage of financial income, and 2 salaries are better than 1 when it comes to higher income. And just noting that on the flip side, if you had a 2-income family, the targets may be higher, but you should be able to hit those targets or be more prone to hit those targets because you have 2 incomes. It also doesn't factor in when you're planning on taking Social Security, whether or not your home is paid off, how much debt you have, etc. This is just raw data. In other words, it doesn't address your specific situation. In most cases, it pays to talk to a financial planner. All right, let me tell you about the data. T-Rowe Price makes some assumptions for a 55-year-old, a 60, and a 65-year-old at different income levels, from a low of $75,000 to a high of $250,000 per year. A family with a $75,000 per year income will have a significantly lower multiple than a family with $150,000 per year. And that $150,000 family will have a lower multiple than one with $250,000 per year. This will confuse a lot of people because the multiple is based on the income, and if the income is already higher, why does the multiple go up the higher the income? There's a very good reason for this, and as I said before, I'll explain it all at the end. All right, let's get started. Assuming you're age 55 and your family has income of $75,000 per year, you should have 5 times $75,000 saved. This means $375,000. At a family income of $100,000, the multiple goes up to 6x. Remember, I said it gets higher as the income gets higher. So if you have $100,000 per year in family income, at age 55, you should have $600,000 saved on average. At $150,000, the multiple is 6.5 times, and at $250,000, the multiple is 7 times. Here's the information at age 60. If your family income is $75,000 per year, you should have 7 times that, or $525,000. At family income of $100,000, that goes up to 8x, which is $800,000. At $150,000, it's 8.5 times your salary at age 60, and at $250,000 in income, family income, it's 9 times your salary. Now at age 65, if your family income is $75,000 per year, you should be at 8.5 times that number. That's $637,500. At an income of $100,000 per year at age 65, you should be at 9.5 times that. That's $950,000. At $150,000, you should be at 10.5 times $150,000. And at $250,000 income, family income, you should be at 11.5 times $250,000. Now, why is the multiple higher the higher your salary? Intuitively, it should be the opposite. If you're a low income earner, you actually need more in retirement as a percentage of your overall take-home pay over the years than someone that had a lot of money and may not necessarily need that amount of money to at least survive in retirement, if not to thrive. Well, there are at least 3 reasons. The first is that the cost of living for someone who had a high income or higher income going into retirement is going to be higher naturally. They're going to have a bigger house many times. They're going to have a higher utility bill. They're certainly going to have the potential anyway of having more expensive cars, more expensive insurance. And financial obligations just tend to be higher for those that had a larger income throughout their life. The next point is that Social Security is a lot bigger as a percentage of overall contribution and income for those who have a lower income than those that have a higher income on average going into retirement. With a lower cost of living and a higher Social Security payment, you don't need as much in terms of what you have saved to live in a similar lifestyle in retirement. Third point is that those with excess income during their working years should have excess capital to contribute to their retirement. Candidly, I've seen it both ways, where people that have a lot of income tend to continue to spend even more than they make because they're trying to always catch up to where they think that they should be at the next rung on the ladder. Conversely, those with very little income often go into debt, serious debt, to just maintain their own lifestyle. So there's no clear-cut direction on this point. Sorry, there is a clear-cut direction. Directionally, those with more income should be able to save more, but the reality doesn't necessarily marry up with that. If you like this video, please make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. I post about twice a week. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.